Doctor and Call comes to you compliments Antillean Life Insurance, Hills and Valley Pharmacy, and the Spice Isle Imaging Center.
Drug abuse, cancer,
measles, diabetes, AIDS, cancer.
Good evening once again, everyone. Welcome to our live Doctor and Call program. It is the 14th day of June 2022, and of course every Tuesday at this time we bring you your favorite program, Doctor and Call. This evening I have a very special guest with me. She hasn't been, well, she's not a stranger, but she hasn't been around in quite a while. Charisse Bristol from the Grenada Food and Nutrition Council. She's a nutritionist. And of course, my co-host as always, who's been kind of abandoned me this last rounds, but nevertheless, we're going to make up for that. So let's welcome Charisse. Good evening and welcome back after a long time.
Good evening, Godfrey. Thank you for that warm welcome. And to the listeners out there, viewers as well, I'm happy to be back.
Oh,
and
yes.
Good evening to you.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much. Doc, how are you doing? Good to have you back.
I know you've been keeping other people with me, but that's okay.
No, not at all. You've been
I'm not worried about my position, and I'm
you've been naughty. You've been
Good evening to Grenada in this crazy times. I want people to remember that they still have things to do to take care of themselves.
Oh yes.
And all the craziness around us.
Yes.
After June 23rd, we still have to continue living healthy.
Yes, we have so much to do together after, So this evening, this week is Nutrition Week. In fact, last week, it was World Food Safety Day, and this week, of course, the GFNC. My apologies. I wonder what I was thinking. Yeah, so it's Nutrition Week, and the theme, very interesting. Charisse, tell us, what is it?
Slogan.
The slogan.
Just a pinch of salt.
Just a pinch of salt. Folks, you know what a pinch of salt is, right? So you don't want to take a teaspoon, you just a little, maybe about a toops. Yeah, Mr. You know who used to say that? Mr. Bartholomew. Nice gentleman in Corinth, when he used to sell the molasses. He would ask the children if they want a good bit or if they want a toops. So a toops is a little bit. All right. So a toops is salt. Yes, indeed. So we're gonna bring in Charisse first. Let's tell us a little bit about Nutrition Week and, of course, the whole idea behind the slogan, a pinch of salt.
Okay. So I must say, we started this work really since last year, coming up with the idea of sodium reduction. And this year we came up with a slogan. But in terms of background, right, because we had to start somewhere, did our research. And we found that in Grenada, the statistics from the Ministry of Health Epidemiology was showing that our people discharged from hospital, the top 3 causes were hypertensive diseases. Then we look at the top 10 causes of death, and that's going back a few years and even more than 10 years, and we're seeing hypertension is in that list, along with cardiovascular diseases, because they're linked as well. And we said, okay, we have to do something. So we have in progress, we're doing a 3-year plan of sodium reduction. And we found that Nutrition Week, this is a time we should start the work and sensitize the public about sodium and its impact on health and the relation with high blood pressure. So we came up with the slogan, just a pinch of salt. Now, we have been in collaboration with CARPHA, Caribbean Public Health Agency, and we will be organizing a webinar for health care professionals. So everyone will be included during the week of activities. We have the general public tasting our low sodium dishes. We'll have a health fair on Friday in Guave, where people can come and get yourself screened, right? Get your questions answered. And we are at the Grenada Food and Nutrition Council. We'll be there obviously providing nutrition support. So yes, people will tell you don't use salt or use less, but then what should I do? So we'll be there to answer your question.
Right. Right. So, Doc, hypertension. It is usually referred to as the silent killer. And we know once you hear hypertension, the next word that comes is salt. Because we know salt and hypertension, they work together very well. And that is not a good collaboration at all. So let's talk a bit about that, Doc.
So I want to talk about, first of all, about our behaviors as Grenadians. You know, it's our favorite meal, right?
Yeah.
So we like oil down, right? But how many people cook vegetarian oil down? And even if we cook vegetarian oil down, how much salt they put in there? Because we like salt. We have grown accustomed to the taste of a lot of salt.
Yeah, we've acquired that.
So we need to consider, and I'm not sure it's going to speak about where we get salt from, why salt is a problem for us. Because our behaviors in our Grenadian community, our cultural practices lead us to always using salt. Okay? Children like ramen soup. Parents give them because it's easy food, is as good as eating cardboard, salt and bad fat. Okay? It has too much salt. One packet of ramen soup has too much salt. There's all the salt you need for a whole day. And a child will have that in 20 minutes, okay? Our behaviors, how we live, our practices, our nutritional practices are probably our worst problems because it is now established that salt contributes. Many years ago, when I was still in medical school, you used to hear about it. There's always this hint, that salt does make your pressure go, but all the salt don't give me pressure. No, the truth is there's no evidence to prove, and that is what is important, that there is evidence to the fact we know that salt does make your pressure go up, does cause you to have high blood pressure because of what the mechanism is. It means that the blood, as it flows through your blood vessels, flows through these vessels that are hardened because of the accumulation of salt in think about the tube, right? That is normally soft, but then you harden this tube. When the fluid is going through there, it's harder for it to go through there. So it runs a challenge. Whether you have salt accumulated in the blood vessels or you have high cholesterol, but you have this constant elevated pressure. Your heart has to work against that blood that comes in at that elevated pressure. Your brain has to try and see how it can, that soft, big, essential organ that's in that hard place that doesn't give it any leeway, has to work against, right, the pressure, the blood that comes in too high. And so all the damage is done to the blood vessels, whether it's in the heart, whether it's in your kidneys, whether it's in your brain, right? So, because it's like, think about rainfall and water is going through the pipes. And we talked about this before. Remember when rain falls, they turn off the pipe, they turn off the tubes that accept water into the treatment plant, because that water comes in at that high pressure and mash up all the tubes. Okay? You want to have water tomorrow still, but if it's okay, you can turn off water for a day or two just to preserve the machinery that accepts the conduits, the tubes through which the water comes in. If you have that constant high blood pressure, just insulting, constantly impacting, constantly bombarding on the blood vessels, you're going to have damage at the end of the day. You're going to have damage to your heart. You're going to have damage to your kidneys in particular. You're going to have damage to your brain in the form of strokes. Okay, and sometimes it's some of the strokes you don't really see, but it happens until a big one occurs. So those are the reasons why. And of course, Ms. Bristol spoke to the issue of our challenges in Grenada. Although we don't have exact numbers, we know what happens. We look at the data from the region, and we look at the data from the Caribbean, and we see hypertension taking the 4th place among all diseases. Okay, and then we see the other things related to hypertension, like cerebrovascular, brain and the brain, the blood vessels in the brain, right? How they're affected, and they are affected. We see, diabetes is probably a second choice. And of course, ischemic heart disease, meaning that you're not getting enough blood flow. But guess what? The poor heart has to work so hard against getting the blood out. Those muscles can't handle all of that, okay? The pressure at which the blood comes in, the heart cannot control. It doesn't have the ability to slow it down and get it to run through easy and push it on because there's this impact. And so heart tissue dies. Ischemia means that we don't have enough circulation in the heart to take it. If some of the heart tissue dies, it means that there isn't enough viable tissue in there to take care of all the work that high pressure brings in.
So, Doc, let me just ask this. The relationship, explain to us the relationship between high salt intake and the heavy flow of blood through the vessels.
Okay, high salt intake, let's define that to start with. What is high salt intake? If you consume more than a teaspoon, right? A nice teaspoon, right? We're not talking pot spoon size teaspoon here. We're talking about a regular teaspoon that you take and stir your tea with. We're not talking soup size spoon. We're talking the smallest spoon that you should have, right? Right. Charisse, put it the other way, Charisse. Put it like flat so we can see, right? Put your finger. I want you to put your fingertip in it so we can see the size. That's a teaspoon, a little spoon, okay? That people don't drink porridge with that because it go down too slow. The little ones that you used to take, like show to the bowl and stuff. If you go out and you're eating decently, the tiny spoon that you'd have that you'd eat normally with, that you'd find normally in your house. That is all the sugar you're supposed to consume, and not big heap up. Just a regular size, 5 grams. 5 grams, a little bit of sodium chloride. Sodium chloride is normal table salt, the salt we used to cook with, okay? 5 grams, 1 little teaspoon of salt. Over 24 hours, that is what we're supposed to consume. If you consume too much, it goes in and the salt is absorbed into the walls of the blood vessels and hardens them. That is the problem. It hardens the blood vessels. And so it means that there's resistance on those vessels in the what do you call the peripheral vessels, the ones outside of the chest and in the limbs and in the other parts of the body. Hardens the blood vessels. So you have that resistance building up, and the pressure backs up, and the pressure becomes very elevated, and your poor heart has to deal in the back with all of that heavy resistance that happens. So it's almost like you squeeze it down, like when you're doing your hose and you take your finger and you kind of stop the water. The water is flowing on, but then you kind of small up the space using your finger and the tip, and it comes up to all that pressure. That's what happens. It gets hard. The blood vessels get hard, and you end up having elevated pressure inside of the arteries. But arteries weren't designed for that, right? And those organs, those target organs, the heart, the brain, and the kidney are the ones that start having challenges when the blood pressure gets so high. So we need to really contain the salt so we don't have that accumulation of salt in the blood vessels.
Okay, thank you. Charisse, I want to come back to you, and we listened to what Doc said about that relationship between salt and your blood vessels, and of course how it puts pressure on the heart and all of that. In terms of our intake, our consumption, you are the specialist. Let's talk a little bit about the quantities, because when we cook, and Doc made reference to the oil dung, for example, we put salt in the food, then we still have a little pig snout, a little pigtail, a little saltfish, and all of that, and you still put a little seasoning that you buy in the supermarket on top of all of that.
Bouillon cube.
All of these little things you put in there, and as far as we're concerned, it tastes really good. You make a bad oil dung. Let's put that bad oil dung into context as it relates to what we've just put into our system.
Okay, good. So as I just I showed while Dr. Nixon was speaking, the measurements, right?
Yes.
So this one here, as you can see, look at my tiny finger, very tiny. So in here, the tip of my finger is fitting in 1/4 teaspoon, right? And then we have the 1/2 teaspoon, about 1 inch of my finger is fitting in the 1/2 teaspoon. And then the 1 teaspoon, about my thumb, 3/4 of my thumb is fitting in there, but when we say measurement, I brought some salt as well. How are we measuring? And we came up with just a pinch. Now let's look at what is recommended. People, healthy adults, you need less than a teaspoon of salt, which is less than 2,300, or WHO will further bring it to 2,000 milligrams of sodium a day, right? So if we have to do the 1 teaspoon, let's see what that looks like, right? So we are going to measure, and we are not heaping it. So we have to level that salt in there, and this is what 1 teaspoon looks like.
Can you come down, Charisse? Right, come down a little, right?
1 teaspoon, but remember we need less than this. Putting it in a bag here, this is what that looks like. Bringing it together, Godfrey, put your thumb next to it. So it's even smaller than Godfrey's thumb. We see that, okay? And people now living with the condition of high blood pressure, do you think you need this amount? Do you? You do not. You don't. Some people say, oh, you don't need salt at all, but that's not true. If we're talking added salt, you need much less. So you need about, say, less than half teaspoon. So the half here would represent about 1,500 milligram of sodium. And this is for people
we can hold it up. If we can lift it up in front of our camera.
Charisse, put it out into your hand so we can see.
Okay. So I'm leveling this, right? And this is half teaspoon. And if I pour in my hand here, this is what it looks like. And this is for the entire day. And it doesn't stop there, okay? This is salt. Sodium is this amount in salt. Now we look at the foods we consume. And you say, I don't cook with salt, but chances can be you might be eating your local foods and you might be consuming a lot more than you should from our natural foods. So looking at a boiled green banana, unsalted, and that has about 98 milligrams of sodium. So think about how much bananas we would sit and eat because we love our green fig, and our dasheen added, our breadfruit, and that large amount because you say I'm eating local. Yes, we can eat local, but it's the quantity. And if we have the condition of high blood pressure, in order to manage it well, is to know what foods contain high levels of sodium or salt, let's say, or those with low levels, and know how to balance it to get the recommended 1,500 milligram or the less than the half teaspoon. Now, people enjoy the salty meats and they may say I don't use it anymore, but some of them, they still use it. They may not tell their doctor, their nutritionist, but they still do, right? And it's on them really, not on us. We are providing the support, prescription to you and proper treatment, but you are as the individual. At the end of the day, it's up to you making a choice to do. So we look at bacon. We might say, oh, it's just a once in a while thing. And that once in a while can go to twice a week, 3 times a week. And you realize every day you're having this. So in that one slice of bacon, there's 137 milligrams of sodium. Much more than the green banana. And we see why we say avoid these kinds of food. Cheddar cheese. Now, an ounce of cheddar cheese is about the size of my thumb here. That's an ounce, right? And that ounce here represents 174 milligrams. So when you hear those numbers, add them up. Throughout the day, am I eating 1 ounce of cheese? because that's where the money could reach.
Charisse, I want to button here
Yes.
because, and I think it's important. Earlier we were showing in relation to your measuring spoons, and if I pick it up now, folks, I am not a nutrition specialist, right? But I think this was the quarter teaspoon, or
Yes.
right. So this is a quarter teaspoon, and you're just making reference to an ounce of cheese. So let's do a little comparison. An ounce of cheese, right? In relation to one of our measuring cups.
So less than an eighth teaspoon.
So
after below this quarter, there's an eighth.
Right.
So less than an eighth. This is about the cheddar cheese.
Okay. All right.
Right.
An ounce. Right.
Right.
So in other words, if we have to consume some cheese, it should not be more than an ounce in a day.
Well, considering if you have high blood pressure, you have to limit cheddar cheese or go for options that read low sodium, and we have some products we can look at, to accept that this product here, this cheese is better. This cheddar cheese, this is the level of sodium, and a low sodium has 100 milligram less. That is the option you'll be going for.
Right.
And just remember again, our natural food, they contain some levels of sodium naturally, and we may be cooking, baking every weekend. How many of us using baking soda? How many of us? And you think that should not have any sodium, but it is. It's bicarbonate, sodium bicarbonate, and that's baking soda. And in one, let me see, for baking soda, an 8 teaspoons, so less than the quarter here, that is giving us about 160 milligrams of sodium. And some recipes
people drink
will call
that every day for their stomach.
I didn't hear.
Yeah, no. That some people use that every day.
Every day for their stomach, or 2 teaspoons in a glass of water.
Just imagine, and you come to your doctor and you say, Doc, I don't know why this blood pressure is so high. I didn't do anything. I didn't eat any salty thing. But that baking soda, you may not even think about it, but that is sodium. You're putting salt in your body. Right? So we call it a hidden salt. Like some people, they don't identify it as being salt or sodium, but it is. Okay.
Because you don't get that salty taste. So if you don't get that, as we say, Doc, if you're in Sally, that's the term we use. If you're in Sally, then you have plenty salt. You only consider salty when it's Sally, so to speak, folks.
And
as you mentioned that, she's saying something.
Go, Charisse. Go, Charisse.
Okay, as you mentioned that, now over time we develop the taste for salt, different levels than another individual. So when you hear someone taste your food and they say, what, boy, that thing real salty, and you say, well, that I don't put much salt in it. So but your level and their level is two different things. So when people consume so much salt in their diet, we ask them to gradually reduce, and not suddenly I'm cutting off salt, because you would find the food is tasteless and you would not accept it, and you would find that you're losing weight and you say, oh, I can't eat the food, there's no taste in the food. It's because of that sudden reduction you did, and you should not do it. Gradual baby steps, lesson until you get there to the required amount.
Okay, wonderful.
So Godfrey, can you hear me, Godfrey?
Yes.
I can't see, because I can't see you. So one of the things we have to consider is, why is there salt in our foods at all? Because that is why we buy the foods that we buy, and when we try to control salt consumption in the society, the things we're going to have to take into consideration. Now, the proper salt has its purpose in keeping our muscles working, especially our muscles working. Okay. The truth is, though, remember why salt is used in the food industry. In all fairness, salt is used as a preservative, and salt is used to give flavor. Okay, so you can't go. I see a supermarket had fresh pigtail the other day, and a fresh pigtail just stayed there. No, I don't want a fresh pigtail. Not in Grenada, because you want Sally pigtail. Okay? And because that's how we are culturized, okay? So remember, this fight is between how we live and why food have salt and what we get accustomed to. Because Charisse very correctly, because I had a very interesting experience with me and somebody eating from the same pot, and I'm cussing how the food had too much salt, and the person at the same time saying, Lord, I didn't put no salt in the pot. And I'm saying, oh, God put some salt in the pot. So it depends on how people are. And it's going to take a little time to get there, but it's not impossible, because we have to make people understand why this is so, why you need salt. So, for example, in countries where they've tried to adjust, there are countries that have already, approached this salt challenge, and Argentina, Canada, for example, has a very big thing. But people who preserve meats like ham and spam and the other things, can we make cornfish without salt? No, we can't. Okay, so we have to consider all of those things, because industry really wants salt to be there, because it needs it to be there for preservative. From long time, your grandmother had a piece of corn poke that she made from The Devil Was a Little Boy. And if the Jamaican folks on dip and fall back, we put the piece of meat in the pot, get the flavor, and you put it back up to dry because the salt is there, right? But the truth is, we have to take into consideration those cultural things, and people have to understand why things they are and why we actually have salt in our food. Because all the food we eat with salt, we can eat without salt, the bottom line. But we're talking about preservation and flavor. So those are the things. And I'm sure Charisse will talk at the end about the options for flavoring our foods, because that is very important.
Okay, so let's just take our first break. When we come back, we'll talk some more. Charisse also worked with some labels, and I am so happy, because I think it is important that people understand that in addition to the salt that we're using at home, when we purchase certain items for consumption, it's already loaded with salt, and we add more salt to that. So when we come back, we'll talk a bit about that, and we'll show you some of the common foods that we buy and we add salt to them, and of course show you the quantity of salt that is already in there. So stay with us. We'll be back with you in just a moment.
Assurance we give, it's so glad to see peace of mind, that's our service guarantee. We look after all our family, yes we do, at every opportunity.
Antillean Group, underwriters of all classes of insurance solutions for your protection and investment. Live well financially.
If there was ever a time to keep and stay healthy, it's now! We at Hills and Valley are here to help you take deliberate steps to maintain your health. We stayed true to maintaining the most comprehensive rates while stocking the widest range of medicines and health devices, including personal protective equipment. There are so many benefits shopping with us. You get great savings through discounts for senior citizens and reward cards for loyal customers. Ask about owning yours today. Visit us at Halifax and Grenville Street, St. George, Jubilee Street opposite the Grenville Bus Terminal, and at Hillsborough, Carrico. Our wholesale distribution on Halifax Street also stocks the widest range of pharmaceuticals. We are with you on the hills and in the valleys. We are Hills and Valley Pharmacy.
Here is a little known fact. There is only one place in Grenada that you can get an MRI scan done. That place is Speysile Imaging Center. Yes, Grenada, that's the truth. Other centers could offer you other scans, but Speysile Imaging provides an authentic MRI scan. Here's another little known fact. Speysile Imaging has 3 centers. We operate at Grenville, the Carnage, and at the Ocean House, Grand Anse. We provide the widest range of laboratory tests and services: CT scans, x-rays, mammograms, ultrasounds, and a host of other services. We are fully staffed by a team of family doctors and specialists. Call us today at 444-7679 or 406-1500, or visit any of our 3 locations. Spice and Imaging, from seeing the doctor to getting lab tests, scans, and pharmacy services. We are here to take care of you.
When a loved one passes on, we all need the comfort, support, and guidance of a trusted friend. You can rely on LaCour Brothers Funeral Home. We provide a personalized professional service that exceeds all expectations. Our dedicated staff responds to your every need with the greatest detail, ensuring affordability with a variety of options. Our upgraded state-of-the-art facilities, spacious air-conditioned chapel with live internet streaming, a modern, environmentally safe crematorium, the only of its kind on island, private viewing spaces, large on-site repast center, a modern transportation fleet. Join our burial society today and make personalized arrangements for that final moment. As you prepare to enter your loved one into eternal rest, visit or call LaCour Brothers Funeral Home and select a package that brings added comfort to the entire family. LaCour Brothers Funeral Home and Burial Society, continuing a tradition of excellence.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Dr. and Call, and we are talking about a very, very important subject, hypertension, and of course, the importance of reducing our salt intake, because, you know, hypertension and salt intake, they go hand in hand. All right. So I think Charisse has a question that she wants to put to all of you out there, and we want you to answer. We can hear, even if you answer, you're not here, but when you answer, we're going to know what you're saying. So Charisse, go ahead and ask them the question.
Godfrey, I think you're going to get away from this one. So Godfrey, you are included, okay?
Yeah, sure.
So to you, Godfrey, and out there viewing and listening on the radio, when you go to the supermarket, do you pay attention to the nutrition facts label, or how much sugar, salt, or fat is in whatever you're picking up?
For me, not all the time.
So Godfrey,
Not all the time.
Godfrey, I want to ask you what you buy. Before time. What does the average Grenadian buy when they go to the supermarket? What we buy?
We buy bread, we buy biscuit, we buy we like with saltfish, we like some tin stuff like corned beef and luncheon meat and all of these kind of things. So these are some of the staples that we buy, you know, because we buy cheese because we love our bread and cheese.
And macaroni pie on Sunday.
Oh yes, indeed, yeah.
Listed there, right? Yes, before then you didn't have any clue about reading label, understanding which is better for my health or my heart. But now you are more educated, you are more informed, and you have a choice now, and you have chosen to choose healthier products. But there are people still out there that are not informed, or they are informed but they choose to ignore what to look for. So if you go to the supermarket and today I have to make some corned beef and rice, am I looking at the rice and see how much sugar is in that rice or how much salt is in that corned beef? No, you look at the cost, right? Because we talk about cost of living so much. And prior to Nutrition Week, we did a survey among the population. A few participated. And some of the people, they said they need income to make a better choice of healthy lifestyle choices, education. They wanted that. And even a place to exercise. They mentioned that for, healthy lifestyle practices. Now, in terms of the income and your health, something is cheap today, but in the long run, how much money you think you'll be spending at a doctor's office?
Oh, yes.
Week in, week out, to 3 times a week, 4 times, and you saying, oh, the doctor is taking your money and they're sending you for test. Why you think that is? So if we take time, we look at a corned beef. So we go on the labels. So if you're at home, grab something from your pantry. So I give you a few seconds. Run and get something. In the moment, someone probably have a drink in their hand now. Something is unwritten at the back or on the side of the product. Nutrition facts.
Yes, indeed.
Now there are some numbers there, and you say, "What? I don't really particular about these numbers here. This is something that is, they say high in fiber, I'm going to have this. They say low fat, I'm going to have it." But let's look at the nutrition facts, those numbers there. Serving size. In that container you have, it represents the 1 serving of the product, and not if it's a big pack of chips. It's not only 50 calories in a whole bag, I'm going to eat all. No. Look at the number and say serving per container. That bag of chips probably have 11 plus servings. So if you look at 1 serving, so in the one I'm holding here, peas and carrots, half cup is a serving size, and in the tin it has about 3.5 servings.
Yeah.
Sodium for half cup, guess how much?
About what? 20 milligrams?
20 you say?
I'm just guessing.
And those out there, well, it's 300 milligrams.
Wow.
300. Remember, we are aiming for less than 1,500 milligram or 2,000 for some people. And this already has 300. Then we look at crackers, sometime in the morning.
Just before you go, Charisse,
Yes.
this is important, and you mentioned the peas and carrots. Now, when we make our salad, generally you open a tin of peas and carrot and you just pour it in your potato or whatever. And remember, when you boil that potato, you did add some salt. All right, and you might even add a tin of corn and mayo, and all of these things contain sodium. So I just thought I would just add this in, because we don't pay attention to the half cup. We just open a tin and you just empty that, you throw the water, whatever is in there, and you empty that inside your salad and you mix up.
And some people, they will tell you
either. You don't rinse the brine. You just pour it in there.
Oh, yes.
Because the brine is just for preservation.
Yes, sir. So we are talking about the crackers.
Yes. And some people, they would have a potato salad as a meal, right? And then they may add a tin of tuna in there because they say, I want some meat. Or they may add an egg. And 1 egg has about 60 milligram of sodium. 60. And you say, I need my protein, so I'd have about 4 eggs or 3 eggs, right? And this adds up. Now, if you look at tuna, now tuna here, 1/4 cup as a serving size, it has about 180 milligrams. Now, people, if you have it, because we're approaching the hurricane season, here you can rinse it. So that helps to reduce the sodium level. How can we rinse it? By pouring hot water in a strainer with the tuna, and that reduces that sodium level. The salt would be reduced. So imagine this, naturally what they made it with, added, not naturally, but added salt, 180. And if we boil some water, and we just some warm water, and we pour that over it, we might go down to 100 or even less milligrams of sodium by doing that. And we have to understand we need salt, but not so much. Now, mentioning all this, I can move on, and then I could go quickly to the ones that you need to help the sodium balance. Now, mackerel. Some of us, that's a thing in the day back then, or even now. Corned beef mackerel. For mackerel, in a small tin. You know, the small tins, you have different brands. So different brands, they have different levels of sodium. Bear that in mind. Different levels. So you may choose this brand because the level is really low. Now in this has 3 ounces of this mackerel in the can with tomato, right? And some may have chili and some other flavoring.
Oil and all of that.
Right? It has about, guess how much, Godfrey, this time?
I would say about maybe 400.
Wow, pretty close. 449. So about 450 milligrams of sodium in that 3 ounce portion. And some people, they may have more. Some people may have less. Some people may not have it at all. And that is better. Now, I did, let's see, corned beef. So the corned beef comparing to the mackerel, Godfrey. What you think?
Corned beef, no, we're gonna double that. Let's say about 1,000.
Wow, so we increasing. So corned beef has about 830 milligrams of sodium, and that's the same portion, the same weight. Let's see, weight for weight we're looking at. Corned beef is up there, up the ladder. And when you look at 1,500 milligrams, and I have to eat rice, I have to eat provision, I'm eating crackers, I'm drinking milk, I'm eating cheese. When you come to the doctor, you do analysis and you look at your levels, that sodium is skyrocketing, the blood pressure is up there, and you wonder, what's going on with me? Why am I doing this to myself? And okay, I need to do better. And people, they can, it's never too late. That's what we have to know.
Oh, definitely. And folks, you see, you know, we saying all of this just to sort of send home the importance of paying attention to the labels when we purchase, because we purchase a lot. We use a lot of imported stuff. So it's important to pay attention to the labels. And if there is something, and I always say that, if there is something on the label you probably don't understand, there is absolutely nothing wrong in asking someone. There's always somebody in the supermarket, you know, you can ask, or you can call one of the attendants, the workers, ask them, I noticed this here, what is it about? Look, if you ask about something you don't understand, you'd be doing a whole lot of good to yourself. So don't be proud and figure, well, for me, sometimes when I can't, I wear glasses, so I have to, you know, as the people, they have to hold a can about a mile away to look at it. So usually, I would stick my glasses in my shirt pocket or somewhere, and when I have to read something, I take it out and I make sure I see what's there. So that's very, very, very important. Charisse, let's bring back Doc in here.
Yes.
So Doc, with all of that and these combinations, and we're seeing the amount of salt being added, you know, aside from the hypertension, although we're talking about that, but there are other complications. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Complications of hypertension. We kind of mentioned put us at risk for stroke. You know what's a challenging part of all of this? Our children are eating different, so we have been hypertension impaired much earlier in our children. Apart from the fact that our children are obese compared to when we were children. Not you, Charisse, because you're a child to us, but our children are obese, no doubt about it. And we see the obesity levels rising in our preschool children. You guys do research every year by 5 and 6% every year. So we're really in trouble. But we're seeing that younger populations having hypertension. That's not good. But the younger populations having hypertension mean that the younger population is not really checking this out because young people don't really go to doctors per se, right? So it means that we're going to have younger people having sudden deaths or sudden severe events like heart attacks and strokes. Young people don't have the capacity to contain, to survive heart attacks because the heart is not it hasn't taken enough time to build up new vessels and have all the adjustments that older people have. So we will see our younger population dying if we don't recognize that there's a problem. Okay, so heart attacks, and of course the problem with kidney disease, with getting renal failure, kidney failure. Those are things we can't afford. We have to look at this challenge, this problem, from a preventative standpoint. Preventative health is the only thing that's going to save us from having all of those big catastrophic events. And so what CARFA has come up with is a whole framework as to how are we going to approach this. Because I think that is what we need to hear today. What are we going to do? How are we going to make sure? The bottom line is we like food that tastes nice, but we must make sure that we can adjust the niceness to keep in balance with what we require and in keeping our health. That is what is important. So what are the things? Changing the food environment. Are we going to ensure that there's front of package labeling? There's a lot of hullabaloo about that in the last few months, and Grenada did not subscribe to changing front of package labeling, where you say, hey, this has a lot of salt. And since we talk about salt tonight, this has a lot of salt. Be very careful. So you would turn the back, because the salt, the front of package label is right on the front. You turn it around and you see the back. This pack of banana chips, this pack of things that we give our kids, corn curls, this pack of what it is, this pack of salt, this pack of cheese, or this tin of mackerel. I remember Godfrey, that sometimes mackerel come in tomato sauce, and tomato ketchup is one of the things that have a whole lot of salt, and we do consume a lot of those condiments in our food with excessively high quantities of salt. So we have to be very aware. So changing the food environment, having nutrition facts, nutrition standards, and we might have to ask people to change how they formulate their project. And I told you, like in Canada, for example, where they decrease the sodium content in food, just to the point where it is. I'm sorry, I'm getting bitten by mosquitoes. I'm really very sorry. I'm fidgeting. Just to decrease it just to that point where it's safe. So it can stay on the shelf, it can taste good, but it still has less salt than we did 10 and 20 years ago, right? Grenada's still kind of lucky because we don't have a lot of industry that produces, right? We import most of the foods that have this high content of salt. But the region is going to have to change the way it produces its food that we sell around ourselves. Other countries already decrease. If you taste some of the products that used to taste before, you would realize that products that come from the UK and come from the US, they actually have less salt than they used to in the past. Because there's that demand, because they know that if they don't make it that way, because people are aware, people are not going to buy it. And moving to the second point, the fact of the whole thing of educating our population as to what they deserve. This is the population, yes, they want to buy food. Unfortunately, we buy a lot of highly processed foods, right? And a lot of ready-made foods that do have salt as a preservative. But the nation needs to know that, hey, this is your challenges. Here's what it is. Here's what's going to happen to you. So we're going to have to embark on educating our population like we did tonight. Tonight is a big, simplified, global intervention, but we're going to have to educate people as to how to make food choices. Whether you have an education campaign, whether you do it in the schools, whether you change how the school feeding program goes, whether you look at the school nutrition program and modify it, whatever it is, you're going to have to find a way, right? And constantly inform the consumers, people out there, our population as to what needs to be changed, what to accept, what not to accept. You don't have to call name, right? Unfortunately, trade laws don't allow us to not be able to buy what is sold in the market from abroad. But we're going to have to say, hey, for example, the people in Mexico, the Mexican government has banned the sale in Mexico of ramen. Mexico deserves a Nobel Prize just for that. They already have a lot of problems with diabetes and obesity. If they can contain their salt by banning this one relatively cheap and extremely affordable product, but very dangerous product, especially for our children, we are ahead of the pack. And then, of course, you have to strengthen the capacity of the system to deal with it, right? Telling people how do we contain sodium? What do we do about it? How do we reduce sodium? What initiatives are we going to take as a community, as a government, as a region, right? What are the policies we're going to have? And as we go along, we look and see what is the progress, how we getting. Is our sodium going down? I wanted to share this because in talking about assessment, So the Argentinians, and I was sharing this with the host, with the party here during the break. In Argentina, that's one of the places where they first started this sodium containment education and containment program as let's see what happens. The Argentinians eat a lot of bread. And we know the baker flings some flour, and if I ask my mother every day, what you put, I just feel like a bit of salt and she's gonna kill me with the salt. She and I talk about this every day, right? She doesn't taste the salt, I taste it. She said, look, I don't put any salt, I don't put more salt in it, and mommy, it's still salt, right? But nobody tells you I put a pound of flour to a pound of salt to 100 pounds of flour. They put it and they know what the taste is gonna be, and the taste is consistent, right? The Argentinians had an agreement with 8 companies that made bread. The Argentinian Ministry of Health had an agreement. They said, let's work on this together. So instead of putting legislation, which is one of the options, to say you're not allowed to put more than 5 teaspoons of salt every 10 pounds, let's have an agreement. Let's start cutting down. They started cutting the salt in the bread, but the manufacturers were counting how much salt they were putting in the bread, right? The bread sold because they started to do it. The bread sold. Bread sales did not drop off. People didn't even realize because it started to go down gently to the point where it's just safe, but there's hardly any containment. Guess what? People's blood pressure dropped significantly because they did before. They did in their research project. They checked on people's blood sugar before and after. Right? There was monitoring. There was evaluation of that program. So we know that there are things that work. But we have to work with our manufacturers. You have to work with the people who sell, the people who import, and all the rest. What do we manufacture? Mostly bread. We don't even manufacture biscuits for consumption, right? And then we have our restaurants, and then we have where people buy food on the roadside and stuff. We're going to have to train and teach everybody how to preserve our population, right? Because these people themselves may also be people who have hypertension without recognizing that they actually have control by simply using the correct measurements and by decreasing the salt. So there's a lot of layers on the onion, but it's something we can do. And we're going to have to do this collectively as a nation because it's costing us. We see the amount of young people we have lost. We're seeing that people are having severe events, hypertension, heart attacks and strokes very early. If you have a stroke at 40, you might live. But guess what? You're going to be useless for the next, and I mean this in a good way. You're not going to be as productive. You're not going to be as useful to your family. You're not going to be able to enjoy your children and a lot of other things for a very long time. Okay? So we have to make sure that we can get our population on board with this whole thing of managing what our salt content in our food is in relation to ensuring that we can control hypertension. So you have to move on to TUPS.
Oh, yes, indeed. Charisse, Dr. Dixon made some very, very, very important points.
I wanted to highlight one.
Sure,
Yes, so Dr. Nixon mentioned about the bakers. And we have so many bakers on island, private, and we have well-established, bakeries. And I know Mrs. Brown had thought of working along at least with one bakery. If they can provide a low sodium or no salt added loaf or bread for the people living with high blood pressure, then we are at one step in control because this is what they enjoy eating. They would like to enjoy their loaf or their slice, their toast in the morning. And where they go to the supermarket or to the bakery itself to get the bread. Some of them, they would prepare it themselves, so they're knowing they're controlling the salt. But then we look at the types of salt. I use rock salt or I use sea salt. This is better. But do you know it's sodium?
Salt is salt.
Right?
Salty.
Salt is salt, yes. But they differ by the level of minerals in them. So the sea salt, you would get selenium, zinc, all the different magnesium than the table salt, which you will get the iodine from it. And you say, oh, I prefer sea salt. But when you look at the sodium level, it's basically not so much far apart, a few milligrams less or more. And you say, I'm using this and I use more. Just as sugar and honey, I like honey is better, but the level of sweetness in honey is more intense. You had something else you said?
Yeah, no, I was going to ask you to speak on the fact that, you know, this whole salt and so is so serious in terms of our eating habits. So I wanted us to look at maybe give some pointers as to how we eat and the quantities, because for example we were looking at the labels earlier and we are realizing, for example, it was the peas and carrot where you should, well, they based on the sodium content,
And as a canned one.
yeah, canned one.
So if you use frozen, there's very little less.
Right, yeah. So the canned one was half cup. But we use the can. So in terms of portioning and the quantities that we consume, a number of things can happen there. By reducing the amount of food that we consume, that in itself is helping to reduce the amount of salt that we take in. And then by doing that, we kill a number of birds with one stone, because we would reduce on our calorie intake as well, and a number of things. So this is what I was going to ask you to speak on, actually.
Okay, thanks. So we have to take this baby step, remember, right? So analyze what you're doing now. Assess, give yourself assessment, like a test. So you know your right questions and you give answers. Now, right questions: what did I eat for breakfast, lunch, snack in between? Now look at it and see how much of that you had was processed, highly processed foods, so those in cans and packets, and how much of those you had naturally occurring, so those you went to the garden and just harvested, washed and chopped, and then in your plate. Now, if you find that the majority of that food for that day and for the week have been highly processed foods, chances are your sodium level is alarmingly high. So gradually you start cutting back, and if then by the next week you see that only one item you had there that is highly processed, then you know, okay, I've made that first step, so now I work on the portions. Okay, portions is important because, as I mentioned, our natural food, they contain sodium, and there's another mineral, or the minerals that help. Dr. Nixon mentioned the role of sodium, right? Now, potassium is a mineral that is necessary for relaxing the blood vessels, the walls of the blood vessels. So too magnesium and calcium, it helps tighten and relaxes the walls of the blood vessels. So if we know what foods that have these minerals, and those that have the high level of sodium, will have a good balance. And we will check our blood pressure together with the medication we're taking. Physical activity is important, and we'll have a better nation with people living with the condition well controlled, well managed. So potassium, the green banana I mentioned, all provisions, they contain potassium. But the thing about this is that people living with kidney disease now, based on the stage, they may not be able to have that level of potassium like the person who just have high blood pressure. Okay? Now, other foods, the dried peas and beans. We have planting season coming up. Go to the garden, plant your peas. We'll get our potassium there. Okay, by Christmas we have dried pea soup or some stew peas on the side. Remember the salt. So we have to flavor. So with flavoring, we're removing something, because companies, what they do, when they remove an ingredient or they lessen an ingredient, they increase in another. So when you see they lessen salt, tell yourself sugar is going up. When they lessen sugar, fat may be going up, just to give that flavor, and you don't realize, right? And something can cause some harm. So then we move to magnesium. Our nuts and seeds, we throw away so much seeds, especially our pumpkin seeds. How many of us save that pumpkin seed to eat, or just saving it to replant? We should be eating those seeds as well. So we can wash those seeds dry them, maybe with a clean towel. Remember, food safety is important. Clean towel. Put it in a baking dish or tray. Put it in the oven for a few minutes, and there you have a healthy snack. No need to add any extra salt. You may want to add some maybe turmeric on it, maybe some ginger powder, some cinnamon powder in there to give nice flavor and enjoy it. Now, with high blood pressure, we think about the antioxidant properties of our fruits and vegetables, and we want to prevent any oxidative stress on the body. So having these foods with these minerals in them can support heart health, bring blood sugar levels down. Now let's go back to the oil down. With all the pigtail, saltfish, and all the salt meat. And with that, what do we drink? Some of us would say lime juice, or some citrus, or some the packet flavor drink, right? Or some maybe a solo, or a sweet drink, something, a soda. And think about that sugar in that drink. It's fructose. And that fructose, it stimulates the absorption. It attracts the salt. So when you're eating that salty food, and so that sugar now is drawing all that salt from that pigtail, and it's retaining that body. And remember, Dr. Nixon mentioned earlier what's happening in those. It starts hardening the arteries, those walls, and we find the pressure is elevating because of that level of sugar, fructose, together with the salt. So when we're reducing the sugar sweetened beverages together with salt, we have control of blood pressure. Okay.
But remember also, they are called sodas because they have salt. The sugar-sweetened beverages, those things that we like, those fizzy drinks have a lot of salt. We tend not to look at it, but they do contain a lot of salt. I won't even tell you which one have a little bit of salt because I don't want you to drink sugar-sweetened beverages. But that is one of the things. Those are some of the labels we need to look at. Our sugar-sweetened beverages have our children drink up to 4 sodas a day. This is crazy. Okay, so we have to remember that even so. Once you're throwing that down with a malt or the oil down, the big pot of oil, not is too much anyway in your plate. You're taking that with a sweet drink or a malt, which has too much sugar and too much salt as well. So.
Okay, so let's take our final commercial break. When we come back, we'll chat a little bit more and we'll open our telephone lines. If our callers have questions that they would like to ask, we'll definitely accommodate them. So stay with us, folks. We'll be back with you in just a moment.
Believe in our strength, we'll stand by you. Protection from all perils, big and small. Reassurance we give, it's so glad to see. Peace of mind, that's our service guarantee. We look after all our family. Yes, we do at every opportunity.
Antillian Group, underwriters of all classes of insurance solutions for your protection and investment. Live well financially.
If there was ever a time to keep and stay healthy, it's now! We at Hills and Valley are here to help you take deliberate steps to maintain your health. We stayed true to maintaining the most comprehensive rates while stocking the widest range of medicines and health devices, including personal protective equipment. There are so many benefits shopping with us. You get great savings through discounts for senior citizens and reward cards for loyal customers. Ask about owning yours today. Visit us at Halifax and Grenville Street, St. George, Jubilee Street opposite the Grenville Bus Terminal, and at Hillsborough, Carriacou. Our wholesale distribution on Halifax Street also stocks the widest range of pharmaceuticals. We are with you on the hills and in the valleys. We are Hills and Valley Pharmacy.
They are the few, the strong, the elite. Grenada, get ready as our sporting gladiators go for gold and glory at the World Championships. Follow every throw, stride and jump from July 15th to the 24th. Capture the action daily on GBN television. It's the World Championships. The dream continues.
James is going to win it. When you need your prescription filled or you require non-prescribed medication, supplements, or all your personal needs, visit Gittins Healthcare at locations on Wall Street, Grandans, Victoria Street, Granville, and Central Deputy Street, Wharf. Gittins Healthcare aims to provide an exceptional personalized pharmacy experience. Additionally, children under 5 and adults 55 years and over will enjoy 10% discount on purchases of $20 and over on prescription medication. Stop settling for less. Visit Gittins Healthcare, where your health is our priority.
Welcome back, everyone, and of course those of you who probably joined us late, we're talking about hypertension and the importance of reducing our salt or sodium intake. Charisse Bristol from the Food and Nutrition Council is with us, and also Dr. Nixon. So our telephone line is open. The number is 435-2041. So if you have any questions you would like to ask, you can definitely do so. Our telephone is going, so let's go straight to our telephone. Doctor and Call, good evening.
Hey, good evening, Citizen Augustine, and greetings, good evening to your professionals there. Just a question here. Doctor, you know something? I noticed because I love green fig and blubber, and I eat it every day. I'm ashamed to see it. Every day as a rule, in different ways, of course. I discovered that bacon in fingers, blubber and fig, glazed with coconut oil or olive oil, without salt, is a marvelous snack. Not more than snack, solid meal. But hear me, doctor. My question is this: at this age, what's a safe weight, should I say, for serving, for example, a lunch? How much food should one eat as a safe range? Various things, of course, and your little fish, because I don't eat meat. Give me a figure there. Safe weight in terms of quantity for a meal, particularly a lunch. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, caller. And the question is right on point, because this is exactly what we were going into now in terms of serving size and what amount of food people should consume on a daily basis. So,
Godfrey, before we go on, I'm going to ask you to keep that mic, the caller's mic, a little lower because it's difficult to hear. It's distorted.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Yeah.
Thank you.
So, Charisse, we can go with the question that the caller just asked.
Yes, sure. So, caller, thank you for your question. But what I must say, as Dr. Nixon, as a doctor, she's here. Some of us, we don't do our yearly check or frequent regular doctor visit, and if we do not do that, I, as a nutritionist or another nutritionist dietitian, would not be able to give you maybe an estimate or an exact figure of what and how much you should be eating. Now, if we have your recent labs, right? Because we look at your kidney function, especially if you have the condition of high blood pressure. There we can say, okay, we can just go ahead and prepare something for you, and this would be your guide. But now if you have the condition or you're just being diagnosed, imagine all your years and you're just being diagnosed at stage 3 or 4, and you wonder what happened past months. Did this just happen, or when did this started? So once we know your levels, remember, you're not too old, too young to visit a doctor. Always visit your doctor. Find out information, your nearest doctor at the clinic or private, you choose. Now let's look at provision. How much can I have? I don't have any problem. Fine. So 1 ounce provision, right? So an ounce of banana is considered a carb serving. So when we planning meals for individuals, we base it on their physical level. So if you're very active, if you're a man, a woman, a child, if you're on medication, if you have a chronic condition, it varies. So it's not a one size fits all. Remember what I said? It's not a one size fits all. So some people would come to us and they expect you to have a diet sheet waiting for them to hand over to them, but it is not the case. We have to sit with you, find out what you're currently doing. So if you're eating green banana and rice, that's your only staple dish with your meat and your veg. I cannot be telling you to have bread and you don't like bread. You wonder, well, she gave me this diet thing and I don't eat this, I'm allergic to this and that. That's the reason we ask you to come in to see us or via phone call, find out what you are eating. And there are changes to be made. We gradually assist you in lowering those certain foods. Right? Now, I came here a few programs back. So using your hand as a measuring cup, a measuring guide, God has blessed us with. And we see this lovely fist here, but some of us, we have larger fist, smaller fist. But a small fist is usually a cup serving. So we say for the day, in terms of provision or so, we look at about 3 to 4 servings, right? Now, based on your level, you might need less, you might need more. Okay? Remember, kidney disease, for provision, you may have some restrictions there because of the potassium level. Rice, the same thing. So it's like a cup of rice, or some people will have to give them a third cup. If you're having rice and beans, you'd have to get less, or some people some more. But remember, with blood pressure, to control nice good levels, we need the beans. So we may need a half cup to maybe a cup. If you're having some soup, then that is good. So in there I might have about 3 pieces of green fig and a piece of dasheen, a small piece, so about this, right? And that's all my staple. I can fill inside there with some cabbage, some pumpkin, some carrot, just to create some bulk, because you want to feel full. You don't want to eat and then feel hungry. So that the vegetables will create some bulk for you to feel full and provide you with the minerals I mentioned earlier. So the green vegetables would give you calcium, right? And remember, that helps relaxes the walls of the blood vessels. Okay, then we look at fruit. How much fruit can I have? If you're looking at cholesterol levels, if it's alarmingly high, then you might have to restrict the amount the amount of fruit you may have. Okay, so we're looking at 2 to 3 serving of fruit a day usually. But for some people, you might need less than that required amount. So one serving, what one serving is? A small orange, right? A sapodilla, a golden apple. Julie mango is in now, not a whole Julie mango, a slice of it, the cheek of it. That's a serving. So if you eat a whole mango, you might have 2.5 serving in a mango. The starch mango, the small ones, might be 1 serving. So that's fine. But if you're having those big man size, my head size mangoes, or half my head, that's way over the amount you are required to have. Okay? I didn't mention, but water is important. And caller, if you think about water as well, you're on target. Water hydration is important. So as Doc mentioned earlier, with the sodium, if you have very little liquid coming in, what will happen with that salt?
Yes.
Right?
Yes, indeed.
So the body, where salt is trying to retain water. So you may not be able to pass urine because the body is trying to hold on to water. And then you see some cases we have the swelling of the feet, and you wonder what's happening. The salt level is alarmingly high, so the body is just retaining and retaining. So we try to flush the body, help the body release what it doesn't need, the excess amount. The body can help, the urine will help, the feces, it will pass out there. So how much water I need?
And if you exercise, of course, you sweat, and that helps.
Yes, and as you mentioned, exercise. Some people think, okay, I sweat and I exercise, I lost so much salt, I must make a glass of salt water to drink. Should you do that, Godfrey?
Not at all.
Not at all, right? You should not do that. There's no need. Once you have the guidelines, the dishes we mentioned, or the foods, there's no need to be adding salt to any water to drink, or maybe, as you mentioned, the baking soda drink, and you think you're helping your body because you have this problem, the stomach is hurting you. But that's salt water you're drinking, and that's going to bring your blood pressure levels up and up and up. But when we look at a lunch plate, as the caller mentioned, the bananas, eating that alone as a snack, as a dish, you may be lacking some other vital nutrient. But if you have it maybe for breakfast or another meal, that's fine. But remember, throughout the day, we need a balance.
Yes.
Godfrey. We need our vegetables. All the colors we can imagine that we have here locally. Local is best, fresh from the garden. If we have abundance, what can we do? We clean them properly, right? We dice them or we cube them, and we store them in a bag or a container. But some vegetables, they need to blanch first. Blanching is just like scalding it for a few minutes. Right? Then throwing that water out, and we keep it there. Food security is what we are about. So for rainy days when we have no energy to peel our breadfruit or to peel this, we have it in the freezer. We can make flour with it. We can make farine with it, right? We have food here and we're wasting it. So look at a banana tree. The flower of the banana. How many of us are just chopping that and throw it away? Feed it to the animals, or maybe burn it or create manure. Yes, it's good manure, but we can eat it as well. The stalk of the banana tree, there as well, farmers are chopping it and throw it away. But chefs out there, they could be purchasing these things, and we have food in Grenada. Some people say we don't. We do have. We're just wasting what we have.
Or probably, could it be that we're not familiar with a lot of the things that we can? I mean, I look at a lot of television,
right,
and I see a lot of things that people consume, and like, oh boy, even bamboo shoots and all things like that. I see people consume all these things. There's some types of grass. You pull it back on the inside, and it is believed to be very tasty.
Yes, but the generation we have now is the fast food, and that's where we gravitate towards. And we forget about our ancestors who worked the land and they ate from the land, and there was no need for those condiments that people use in the barbecue sauce, the ketchup. No need for those. The pickles, high in salt. The Worcester sauce, you see a nice name, soy sauce, very salty.
let's go back to the telephone. Let's see who's with us. The doctor in call. Good evening.
Good afternoon, sir.
Caller, can you just turn the volume of your device down and listen to us on your telephone? All right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, turn it down. I have a problem because I eat banana, which just always bother me, like mango and things so. Or any fruits. I wonder what causing that, because I checked the doctor tell me it's after we fuck what I have on my stomach. So what causes it, I want to know. That might thing tonight.
Okay.
One more thing. I find every time I drinking, I like Coke. Every time I drink a Coke, I feel fine as Coke again, and that keep on going on me. I don't know what's going on. So can you make it on that, please?
Okay, thank you, caller. Thank you very much indeed. Yes. Doc, I think you better take this one.
I didn't hear the first half of the question, though. It's really resonating for me.
Yeah, he says whenever he eats like mangoes or whatever it is, bananas, he has this burning stomach.
So there are two things, and you may be right. You may just have reflux, but also remember that having reflux is related to how much you eat. Okay. So I know mango in season, and Charisse talked about the mango of her head side. I don't know where Charisse live, but where I live, our mangoes are very modest. But seriously, it's one of the things is your portion, sir. And I don't know which doctor you've been to. Maybe you need to go back to your doctor and tell him that it continues. But I'm going to advise you to two things. One, cut down on how much you eat. Okay, if you're going to have a mango, Charisse says one Julie mango is too much. But some of us sit down with a pan of Julie mango. I mean, I look around and I see the amount of Ceylon that is considered high-end mangoes I see wasting around. I'm not even going to talk because I find it heartbreaking. For us, actually take the Ceylon mango, whatever mango we have that we can cut up and put in the freezer so we can make a smoothie to have a drink with a little bit of ginger or something that enhances the flavor. But, sir, I'm going to tell you, I think you need to consider the amount that you have. And one of the other things, if the doctor has told you you have acid reflux, one, you have to cut down on the acid fruit. So fruits and even having like a soda will cause you to have that acid flowing back up into your chest. Two, you can't lie down for an hour or two after you've had something to eat. So what you eat, how much of what you eat, and how soon after you eat can you lie flat. Okay? Go to your doctor. If your doctor two or three times and your acid reflux is not going away, he needs to test you for like H. pylori, which causes you to have reflux and that kind of heartburn that you feel. And sometimes if you keep having it, especially if you're in the 40s or little, that kind of age group, your doctor's going to have to suggest that you do scoping, look inside your stomach and see what's going on. That's probably a good thing if your thing keeps coming back. But I suggest you go back to your doctor and explain to him. Take a week or two, see if you can cut down on what you eat in relation to volume and quality of what you eat. And the truth is, stay away from the sodas because they're just expensive and make your stomach sicker anyway. And if it continues, go to the doctor and let him give you some medication. If it continues, then you probably need to have your stomach looked at.
Okay, thank you, Doc. Let's go back to the telephone. Doctor and call, good evening.
Hey, Godfrey, permit me again. I want to be a little more... Are you hearing me?
Yes, we are.
I just want to be a little more direct.
Can you just turn the volume down, please? Because it's really loud for me, even if I turn it down. Thank you.
Yes, go ahead, caller.
Yes, thank you very much for the explanation, my little lady. Listen, I eat a bit of everything, but only ground provision, vegetable, and that sort of thing. I do not eat processed food, period. But you see, I want to go a little more direct. Is there any danger in sitting for lunch and eating about a kilogram, I refer to here about 35 ounces of food in one meal, because that's what satisfies me. Is it safe? To be a little more direct with my question.
Ask him not to leave. Ask him not to leave.
Hold on, caller. Don't go. Mm-hmm.
What is that food? What is contained in that food?
Ground provision, blogger, fig, plantain, potato, carrots, raw onions, what else? Tomato, cucumber, and boiled, steamed tuna fish. Huh? That's how I eat.
What do you do after you've had that meal? How are you engaged?
I do not lie, but I sit up on my chair in front of my computer.
So you spend a lot of time sitting?
Yes, I do.
How much physical activity do you engage in for the day?
On Saturdays, I dance merengue and salsa.
Woo!
They are bad.
So that's not easy.
I know. I want to ask you, but seriously, I want to ask, is that the only meal you have? Do you have other meals for the day?
Well, of course, in the morning, 4 o'clock, I must drink my brewed coffee. I don't eat bread, period. I use local cocoa in the evening and coffee in the morning. And during the day, I eat a very heavy meal.
So you only have one meal for the day?
Yeah, a large one, a huge one. But I do eat little fruits and so on, a banana here and there and so on, during the day, forget little things. But
and would you say that, you're not anemic or you're not overweight?
No, I feel as fit as a fiddle. The only problem I have is with my sight, and that don't bother me either.
Yeah, well, you can say you've got your computer, so I guess that can bother you. So I think it depends.
I just want to know if it is safe. If it is safe, because that's only I can't eat less than that to satisfy.
Yeah, if he's satisfied, what can I tell you?
Yeah, sure.
All right. So you said there is the provision, sweet potato.
Yes.
Is it?
That.
You said.
Yes.
Caller.
Yes.
I'm not hearing him.
Yes, I'm there.
Sweet potato. You said.
Yes.
So an average small potato. How much of that you're having on the plate?
Well, let's put about 3 or 4 ounces of potato, about 3 or 4 ounces.
Okay, 3 or 4 ounces.
Yeah.
Then the banana, how much?
2 or 3 grain, according to the size. Are you there?
Ounces. So we have 6 ounces there.
Yeah.
And the other provision?
A block or 2, a carrot, a bit of everything, but principally vegetable. I don't eat processed food, period. I try to. You see, I just want to know if by weight that amount can be dangerous for me. Are you there?
Okay, yeah, we're here.
Okay, well, I'll leave it to answer the question.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, thanks.
Right.
So he's saying, Charisse, so for example, the blogger, he may have 1 or 2, generally maybe about, the potato, a couple green bananas, and so on. So definitely is more than, let's say, 2.
He didn't say any meat?
No, he didn't mention any meat. He mentioned tuna. Tuna.
He does not eat meat, he only eats fish, some steamed fish.
Yeah. But generally, it's not a case where he has a few slices. He has, a little more than that.
Okay, so he mentioned the kilo before, and then, counting the items there, it doesn't seem so much. But, like, showing him the models, really, and having him tell me, yes, this is the amount I have. Caller, if you're thinking about eating better or eating healthy, look at your plate. Is it a large plate than the average, we say 9 inches for an adult plate? If it's greater than 9 inches, then and it's filled, then yes, you are having a lot. Now then you can look at the plate, the composition. You said you have a little bit of everything. Now if you have provision as the largest portion on the plate, then you're taking in a lot of carbs. Now only on Saturday you're very active dancing. So what happens during the week, the other 6 days of the week? Sitting, watching TV, just relaxing. You need to be active, because over time that can, yes, be harmful. And doing a blood check, you might see that your A1C levels going up, so blood sugar problems. Then you look at your blood pressure, because with diabetes or with high blood pressure, you can have either or, and then we're looking at kidney disease. So monitor your levels, caller, and we can know how to adjust it. But for now, try to have more vegetables than the provision, gradually increase it, and then you can say, I am eating well. 9-inch plate, not greater.
It's funny because we didn't ask him whether he consumed salt in that.
Okay, so let's go back to the telephone.
Before we go on, sir, I want to make a point here, because it's interesting that this gentleman calls and asks about himself. A couple of weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, we had a health fair for men, and Charisse was one of the counselors. And I remember how grateful the men who participated were. So much they say so way beyond the hours you had planned to stay having discussion. It is important that people use the services of a Food and Nutrition Council or a nutritionist in your health center to get an idea as to how to gauge what you eat or not. I think it's very important that everybody seeks out once, especially if you already have problems with hypertension and even diabetes, that you should really seek nutrition counseling. It is very important, because Charisse did mention a while ago that there's no need to give you a diet sheet. That's what I used to do 40 years ago, 30 years ago. There's no diet sheet. There's a need, because this gentleman is a slim, probably healthy, especially except that for his visual impairment. So I want everyone who's out there to recognize that your need is individual, and so it should be tailored to suit what you eat. Of course, we know the salt, but what you're going to eat as your meal will depend on how you occupied in the day, what is available to you, how you're going to gauge what you put in your belly as per what you can put in your pot, right? So it is very important that everybody seeks some nutrition or some dietary counseling in order to be able to gauge themselves and to get first-hand one-on-one information. We can see the food labels and you can be taught how to read. This is something we're going to have to work on as we start working towards decreasing salt consumption to less than a teaspoon a day or 300 grams of sodium. And I wanted to make one more point in relation to sodium. Remember, there are other things that can actually season foods, right? That can actually preserve, like potassium and stuff. So those are other options. And that will come up as we start talking in the future about how we control sodium consumption of food. But you have to seek individual counseling to be able to gauge it correctly.
Okay, so let's go back to the telephone. Doctor on call, good evening.
So I call back for my doctor. Like banana. And I eat the banana your bomb stomach. And I check the doctor. The doctor tell me some after we fuck out my stomach. Like plenty. If I put some hot water on the fire and drink it, it's stomach stop on me.
If he does what? I didn't hear.
You stop burn me. You have to drink hot water.
Okay. Because you dilute acid in your stomach. That's what you do when you drink water. Even if it's cold water, it will dilute the acid. So, like I said to you a little earlier, you kind of need to don't eat the things that make you sick. I mean, it's logical. Don't eat the things that make you not feel well. Okay? If you're having consistent heartburn and discomfort, you have to see the doctor again. I'm going to tell you this much, because you have to prevent more complicated issues that can occur down the road. All right. So if you're having heartburn with the things you eat, even simple things like banana, you can't eat a whole bunch of it. Okay, let's get real. But if you're having heartburn when you consume it, you should really avoid it. And if you have really very small amounts and it's still causing problems, go see the doctor.
Yeah, I was 29 years. I'm 29 old. And I was kind of acid. Fuck, acid we figure on my stomach.
But acid reflux can be treated, so that's why I'm asking to go to see a doctor again.
Yes, so the doctor tell me use like Dica.
Yeah, but if it's continuing, you have to go see somebody else. You have 200 doctors on island or more, so don't worry.
Okay.
Thank you, caller. Thank you very much indeed. Yes. All right, the number 435-2041. You can give us a call with your questions or your comments, and we'll be happy to share with you whatever information. Doctor and call, good evening.
Hello. Good evening.
Yeah, good evening, caller.
Yeah, thank you for taking my call. I want to thank the nutritionist. I want to thank you, and I want to thank Dr. Dixon for the wonderful presentation. Not only is it a wonderful presentation, but I think there's a lot of practical education here. And I'm happy that I actually took the time to listen to you. I just came upon that accidentally, and I'm kind of glued in front of the computer listening to it. I've certainly learned a lot from that. A gentleman called about eating one large meal a day. And there are a lot of the issue that he described could be a lot of things, as Dr. Nick Dixon so nicely pointed out. One concern I have about someone consuming the total food/caloric intake for the day as one meal is that may put too much stress on the stomach. That may put too much stress on the digestive system. And that itself may cause some of the symptoms he experiences.
Thank you, caller. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much indeed. Charisse, you want to comment on the caller, Doc?
Yes, thank you, caller. We really appreciate that we capture your attention, really, and you're still there and you even called in. Lovely. And with that mention about one meal, now there's something called intermittent fasting, and that's where an individual will fast for 8, 10, 12, 16 hours, and they would eat within a 8-hour window, maybe small meals or maybe one meal then. Now this caller has a cup of coffee in the morning, and remember, if you have the condition of high blood pressure, coffee can aggravate the condition, so that's a little no-no. The one meal there, if it's a very large meal, then the body now has to digest it, take its time, know what it contains. If there is fat will take a longer time to digest, a couple of hours, 10 more, than the carbs and the protein. Then we think of the activity of the individual. So if that an individual is not very active and they're consuming so much of that meal, then we have weight gain over time, gradual weight gain. And where do we gain weight first, Godfrey?
On the stomach, on the tummy.
The stomach.
Yes,
that's the area. Now, we the study with the fructose, seen that people consuming fructose, right, compared to the green bananas or the provision, people on these high sugar foods, they had accumulation of fat in the stomach area, the organs particularly, than the people eating provision. They had a distribution of fat but just under the skin, right? But do we still want that? We want to be healthy, yes, and if we can try our best to break down that large meal to give the body a break. But over time you hear people say, well, this is how I've been eating how many years now, why should I change now, or how can I change now? Same way that you're having so much salt, that we are asking you to gradually reduce it to the level you should be having. And season your food with the ginger, the herbs and spices that we have here locally to give flavor. Use lemon juice on your fish, on your chicken, on your salad, instead of adding the salad dressing, because they have lots of salt. Now, some of the callers and some of the listeners and viewers out there, you probably tapping your shoulder right now saying, well done, I'm doing well. But it's not about you only. Think about your neighbor down the road. Think about your other family member, friend. Think about them as well. Love your neighbors yourself. So we are doing the right thing, but let us encourage each other. So we have a community effect, then a nation effect, then a regional effect, and on the world, the Caribbean can be placed up there as having the massive reduction of sodium in the diet and control levels of blood pressure.
Yep, yes indeed. Thank you very much. Let's go back to the telephone. Dr. Nicole, good evening.
Hello, good evening. How are you?
Very good.
Yeah, what I notice about eating, according to what you eat, your body tells you that is too much. You could get it with according to what you eat, your tongue tells you. Yes, I notice that anytime you eat too much of one thing is not too good. So according to how you eat the meals, you could feel it through your body, but you have to listen to your body. A lot of people does not listen to their body, but I don't listen to my body. Thank you very much.
Thank you, caller. Thank you very much indeed.
Very good.
You know, that's a very, very important point the caller made, Doc. Paying attention to our bodies.
Yes, we have, and it comes from discipline and being very mindful of your entire life, of how you live. What am I eating? We go to the restaurant or we go on a buffet, but they have a million things and we take everything. Do we really need to eat everything? You don't eat so much, I tell people, ask me, and Charisse, I'm not stealing your job here. I tell people, I ask, how much bread do you eat? I eat some bread in the morning. Tell me how much is some? Like 3 slices. What slice? Slice like this? Slice like fat like me, or slice like that look like my little finger? And I tell you, if you toast your bread and you cut it up in little pieces, you toast 1 slice of toast that comes from the store, right? You know, the machine cut in the thing. you get full because it takes you so long to eat those little morsels. Your body start making use of it, and okay, I can stop now. And sometimes you may not be able to eat a slice of food. So it's how you treat yourself, and that is why I'm telling everybody: go seek nutrition counseling if you think you have a challenge. So somebody can tell you, this is how you do it. Let's try do this. Let's work with this. Let's change this. Let's change that. Because everybody is a different person. Everybody has a different style. Learning good habits is what's very important.
So let's go back to the telephone. We'll take one final call. Doctor on call, good evening.
Good evening, son. Hello to everyone.
Thank you.
What we also have to look at too is the labeling of some of these items on the shelf, because the prints are so small, you can barely see them, and some of them, the prints look like Arabic. You cannot really read them at all. So I think it is important that we even make a change in our national importation of some of these things. And there are some you can't even tell where they are made, and some have no labels on them at all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paula.
I'm very happy that gentleman brought up that point, because I wrote it down in the beginning. The truth is, we don't have legislation or policy that says that a food should be labeled. There's no law that says you're only allowed to buy food that tells how much salt. So if you go and look at a certain drink, if you look at our alcoholic drinks that are made here, or alcoholic beverages, right? They don't have any labels, but when they export them, they have to be labeled because they have legislation that demands that the product be labeled. So it is very important, therefore, that we work from a policy level, from what is going to be legislation as per law, or just policy that says this is what must happen, right? And that's what's accepted conventionally, that certain things happen. I discovered when I was trying to open a tin of corned beef, Charisse, that the nutritional information on the tin of corned beef is right where the key is. And it's so small that you needed like 6 pairs of eyes to see it. So most people, if you want to read a label, you can look on the flat side, right, where there's more writing. But I kid you not. The nutrition information was there, almost illegible. And the first thing you do that tin of corned beef is put in a key and start turn. But the time you start turn, you don't get a chance to read anything because it's all gone. Now, the other thing is that the whole importation of foods that are labeled with curly writing that we can't understand the characters. So until we are able to insist on how nutrition information is placed on the products that we buy, that we have access to in whichever market, whether it's supermarket, roadside market, Mr. John shop, it doesn't matter. Until there's rules that says that when you buy a pound of farine on the store, on the side of the road, it must says there's 6 teaspoons of salt to a pound of farine. You understand what I'm saying? Until we have policy stating that it's so, we're in trouble. But it does not take away from the fact and from the things that Charisse had to say earlier, that we still have to look for the things that are there. So these days when I open a tin of corned beef, which is very rarely, I look for the nutrition thing. What I discover, however, is a lot of the corned beef that's on the shelf have no nutrition information, especially the least expensive ones. So as consumers, we have to make sure that we can protect ourselves. And we should say to the store owners, why are you selling stuff that I can't read? We have to be aware that we must only have access to goods in the market that we can discern whether or not we want to have it. And labeling, nutrition labeling or warning labels like in front of package labeling is very important. And it's something that we as a population of people, not just Charisse or myself or Godfrey, who are influencers in some way, but the people in the country are going to have to say, I want to see what I'm buying, especially since things are going to be even more expensive in the next few months, if we can get there.
But I also think the Bureau of Standard has a role to play here. Shouldn't they be paying attention to items coming in that are not labeled? And
no, because there's no law that says that they have to be labeled. The cartels can't be from Brazil.
Right. So from the Bureau of Standards, they have standards, and locally produced products, they follow the standards. What a product should, how it should be labeled, and the ingredients, how it should be listed for each product. Now, those coming into the country, however, some of us, we have families abroad, and we bring in containers, we bring in the barrels, and we bring in a little box. And yes, the custom officer may evaluate and leave you you're free to go with your goods. And then we have the companies bringing in items. Now, it starts with them really in knowing what they're bringing in. Then Ministry of Trade, they should be responsible for knowing this should be accepted in the country, or these goods should not be, because they're being banned in X country for such problem. And we wonder why something that is banned in so many countries in Grenada, why is that? And then it's off the shelves and so forth. And then we think of the printing. Now, if you get a product that has no label, it means that the packaging it was in that had the label. So, for example, it's of rice, for instance. You may get it on the shelf as pong pong, so you may not see a label on it, but it came with a label. Some of the canned products, the sardines, some of them, they come with a packaging. And some of them, they come in an envelope, so one package. But then if the company or maybe the retailer, small shop, decides to single it out, because you see some say it's not for individual retail sale, should not be sell individually. Some of the biscuits as well, they sell them individual, and it should not be, because the customer is not, the consumer, not able to read what they're putting in their bodies. And we are asking them to reduce this, look for that on the label, and they're going to the store, they're going to look, and it's not there.
It's not there.
Right? But there's no law that says it has to be there. So until our policymakers ensure that they make demands that the products that are brought into the country have labels that our consumers can read and be informed, we're going to have problems. And
ISO, there's the ISO 900, 9000, and the laws you follow in Morocco, as I studied, there is French and Arabic. Now, if any other industry or so decided to export goods and they have to import it, they need to translate. There should be a translation for that country. So if we are accepting goods from Israel or maybe some foreign country that has a different language, we should see a translation there that we can read and understand. Now, I speak French, so if I see something written all in French, I would understand because I speak French. But another Grenadian that does not speak that language can tell what is there, right? So we should have it in a language that the people can read and understand. And all the details are there, including the ingredients list. And not find and under something that you have to flip up or turn. You imagine you have to remove the key and then there's nothing for you to see.
All right. Well, Doc, Charisse, that's all the time we have this evening. It was really interesting, chatting about all of this, and I look forward to doing it again, because that's the kind of information that we just cannot stop putting out there. If we want to have a healthier nation, it starts with educating our people so that they get to understand what should be and what should not be. And so the invitation is always open, Charisse, for you to be here to continue to help putting information out there so that our people can get a better understanding of what they can do to improve their health. Doc, thank you so much as always. So let me just give you 30 seconds each just to say goodnight and make any final closing remarks.
Yes.
Charisse, we start with you.
Thank you, Godfrey. So as a reminder, we're looking and we're aiming for half teaspoon of salt, right, for people with the condition of high blood pressure, and the average adult less than 1 teaspoon of salt, and sodium would be less than 23 or let's say 2,000 milligrams. That's better. We're aiming for that with the WHO. And for people with a condition of high blood pressure, the half teaspoon will represent 1,500 milligrams of sodium. And again, Nutrition Week, just a pinch of salt.
Right. Yes, it is. Doc, your final.
So I want to exhort to everybody who listens to tonight's program, and that you tell 5 people about the importance of salt. It is necessary. We do need to have some salt on our diet, but not more than what is the equivalent of 1 teaspoon of salt over 24 hours. So that's the first thing I want to say. I want to remind people that we are yet at a disadvantage because we don't have laws and policies that govern what we get to eat. And since most of us have been eating processed foods, we actually buy what we eat. It comes in a tin, it comes in a package, and it's often enveloped in salt for preservation. Be very aware. I want to also exhort, I want to ask everybody to become an advocate in the war against salt, and therefore an advocate in the war against hypertension, cardiovascular, heart and blood vessel disease, kidney disease, strokes, ischemic heart disease, which is heart attacks, right, which will lead to heart attacks. I want everybody that when the process starts of talking about cutting down on salt and the measures we can do and how we collaborate with the merchants and vice versa, that everybody who listens tonight, I'm going to ask you to become an advocate for the reduction of salt in our foods. And I want everybody today to start take the measures to decrease the amount of salt that our children consume in particular, because they are consuming too much salt. The other thing is that please keep checking your blood pressure. 120 over 70. It doesn't matter how old you are or how young you are. That is, well, young, as a child, it should be a lot less. But as an adult, your blood pressure should not be over 120, the top one, and 70 as the bottom one. You talk about 140 or 90 if you're over 65. No, that doesn't cut it. Because what our studies have shown is that people who have elevated blood pressure are at risk for disease. We know salt and high blood pressure love each other. Let's try and separate them as far as we can. Okay, we have to keep the salt of our diet. Enjoy the oil, enjoy all that you're accustomed eating. Just keep salt out of it and find new ways to season our food and to make our food tasty. Have a good night.
Doc, thank you so very much. It was indeed a pleasure. Charisse, thank you again. And as I said, we look forward to continuing to put that kind of information out there so we can all learn how to better take care of ourselves. That's all the time we have. Thank you very much. Tomorrow evening, I'll be back. Don't forget, next Tuesday, we won't have a program. I'll be off for the week next week. But definitely the following Tuesday, you can definitely join us. We will be back for our Doctor on Call program. So until then, all the best and do have a good night. Take care.